so you don't have to take extensive notes. It will be posted on the website. We're going to look at what those opportunities are in the vendor management, third-party vendors, vendor management, BCP. We're going to cover why we care. Why do you care? Obviously, you have a vested interest, or you wouldn't be participating in this presentation. How can we embrace best practices? There's regulatory compliance, there's best practices, there's lots of opportunities here, and we want to take a look at those. Who should participate? And we'll cover that. We'll cover the basics. So what? Our goal, our clear goal, is to provide directions and opportunities here in this webinar. Please ask questions via the chat tool. If you have any questions, we'll address them later, or throughout the presentation you'll have an opportunity, definitely at the end of the presentation, to take down my email and my phone number, and I welcome questions. We welcome sharing the best ideas. To make sure we're on the same page and we're communicating, we're going to cover a couple of key points. What is the business continuity program versus the disaster recovery program? Vendor management as it relates to BCP. We have to cover these foundations to make sure that we understand what we're talking about. And what are the methodologies and tools available to you? We're going to show you what we do and discuss those methodologies and the tools. What's the difference? This is a very important concept. It amazes me today. I've been doing this. I live, eat, and breathe business continuity, disaster recovery. I've been doing it for 14 years full-time. Prior to that, I was in retail business management and emergency management. I was a deputy sheriff in Oregon for 12 years. I had a previous career, 17 years in the grocery business, courtesy manager. So those things all come together. My team there's 4 members of our team. We have a tremendous amount of experience in this area. We participated in over 1,100 disaster recovery exercises and several hundred live disasters events. And so we bring that experience into the planning process. And it's fascinating to me today how much this terminology is being confused. Disaster recovery and business continuity, they do not mean the same thing. It's very important to understand. And today, traditionally, disaster recovery was what IT did. And I want to change that. I want you to consider that disaster recovery today is something that's done by 2 departments. IT goes into recovery when an event happens. Facilities goes into recovery. Those are the 2 departments that do recovery or disaster recovery. And even more fundamental, what's a disaster? Well, disaster is an event in time. It can be a catastrophic event that starts immediately. It can be a minor event, and you add time, it becomes more significant. So a disaster is an event plus time, and an event doesn't necessarily have to become a disaster. IT and facilities does disaster recovery planning. We now call that the disaster recovery programs. You notice the change of the wording from plan to program. Terminology is important. We want to start the process of changing our thinking from plan, which implies closed-ended, to program, which implies open-ended. And so what do the rest of us do? While they're in recovery, we provide continuity of service to our members, and that vendor relationship is a critical part of that today. So we do continuity of service to the members while IT and facilities is in recovery. Tremendous crosswalks. You've got your business impact analysis. You have your disaster recovery programs. You have your risk management, risk assessment areas, and the vendor management is a component of all that, and it can all be tied together. There's strong crosswalks, and that's where our opportunities are today. When we do it right, we head towards enterprise continuity, and that's our goal. The professional services team, the team I work with here at Ongoing Operations, we're looking at that enterprise picture. We want to develop an enterprise continuity program that ties all the pieces together. So there is a huge opportunity in the vendor management and BCP area. There is a huge opportunity to merge and share the information rather than do it as separate components. There's places where things should be separate, and there's places where they can be shared together. And we're going to cover some of the opportunities, the tools to do that, including why we do it, and of course regulatory compliance. The biggest thing, the opportunities, is the duplication of vendor information. There's a lot of vendor information out there that's being duplicated. It's not unusual for me to go out to a credit union, and keep in mind, interesting, our professional service team, because we do the disaster recovery and the business continuity planning, we go out and we visit close to 100 credit unions a year. We sit down with every department manager and create or update their business continuity plan, their BIA. We look at what they're doing. We look for opportunities. As I tell the executive team, when we present what's been accomplished and prepare them for their roles, their leadership role at time of disaster, I say, how many trusted vendors do you have that come out, meet with all your line staff, all the department managers that are leading the departments, the supervisors, the managers, the VPs, and then we come back and we report to you and share forward how well you're doing and what the opportunities for improvement are. You don't have many, and so it's a great opportunity, and we see, you'll hear me say that word over and over again, but we just see so many opportunities to save time and money and effort. There's duplicate vendor information. It's not unusual to walk into, say, an accounting department that has 5 employees, ask where the vendor list, and find out that the manager and every employee in that department has their own vendor list. And same goes for other departments. We want ownership. This is important. We want ownership of the vendor, primary vendor information on the line staff, the people who are actually working with that vendor every day. That is very important because they're the ones that work every day. If a phone number, a person, a contact person changes, they're the ones that are going to know first. So we want them to have the power to update that information. We want to collect the information from them. The managers oversee that they're maintaining and keeping that information together. If we do that right, and they're doing an effective job, well, accounts payable can use that same information. We don't have to have it completely separate. We don't have to reach out, have accounting reach out every 6 months, a year, or however often you do it and say, yeah, I need a list of all the information you have on your vendors to make sure our information is current and up to date. Or I just got a bill from this vendor, can you confirm it? They might have access to the same information, and accounting just goes click, click, and says, ah, I see what's going on. We can. There's an opportunity to connect these. This is the vendor management, the VCP, and other areas such as accounts payable. Who do we usually see in charge of vendor management today? Compliance. But we want a lot of the information to come from the people dealing with that vendor, and this department or whoever's in charge of the vendor management component is getting most of their information from the line staff and then filling in the gaps. They're doing gap. Methodologies, start simple. I get this a lot. Talking to people about business continuity or tackling even the vendor management program, I hear people over and over again that we work with say, boy, I'm having my trouble wrapping my arms around this. Well, if you feel you're having trouble wrapping your arms around it, you are correct. Like I said, we live, eat, and breathe business continuity planning. I've been doing it for 14 years myself. We have a whole team doing this, 1,100 or more exercises, several hundred or more disasters, live disasters. I'm one of 200 some odd master certified professionals, business continuity professionals in the world. And literally, my clients that are on this call have heard me say this to them. Literally, what I'm saying here is I'm now fully aware of how little I know. It is absolutely amazing to me how quickly this changes, how challenging it is to keep up with the changes. But it's a lot of fun. You can actually, if you view it as opportunities, it can be a lot of fun. So if you think you've got your arms wrapped around it and understand it completely, pay attention. I'm going to give you some tools to go out, look at, and reconsider that because you may be fooling yourself. Here's what we see. We go out on site. Remember, 100 credit unions a year, visit with all the department leaders, supervisors, line staff, not all line staff, but all the key players. And where do we see that vendor information? We still see it in notebooks, business cards on their desk or the wall, and Post-it notes. We see it in Word, Excel, or Access. Same thing, vendor information. Why do people use the Word, Excel, Access? Well, they can encrypt it and password protect it, so they can even put their passwords in there, right? Wrong. Everybody on this call should know that Microsoft Office with security, the encryption and security was compromised several years ago. So you shouldn't allow anybody to keep passwords in that those documents Excel or Access anymore. Shared or public lists in Outlook. There's an effective tool. That is an effective tool because that way you've got the department sharing a list, you've got a public list. If it's a public list, now a county can go over and pull in the most recent information and soak in the person in charge of the vendor management system. So that is an effective tool. I doubt it, but if somebody here uses Lotus Notes, that's also an effective tool for enter once, populate everywhere. Important tool is, the key point I want to get out in this area here is when you pick your methodology, it is very, very important to start simple and grow, because you are not going to wrap your arms around it all at once. In fact, with continuous change, there's a question rather than you wrap your arms around the top items, the things, your objectives, what you have to accomplish right now, and accept that it's going to be constantly shifting and changing. That's a good way to look at it. So what are there? There's dedicated vendor management applications. Some of you on this call will be using those, and they can be good. They can be expensive. My experience has been they can be really overcomplicated. I know I had a vendor reach out and wanted to do a partnership with Ongoing Operations recently, and they demoed their product, and let's just say it was embarrassing for them. It made me think of using, if anybody uses it, Planet. Massive learning curve. Could the tool work? Yes, massive learning curve. You need to start simple and grow from there. We use SharePoint. So the demonstration I'm going to do, some of the key things I'm going to show you that we do are going to be SharePoint based. Again, take note of my email or phone number. If you've used something else and want some ideas on how to cross over, I'd be happy to share those ideas or discuss how you can get there. I'm going to be showing you some examples on SharePoint, which is not perfect. It's just the best tool we've found to date for creating an enter once, populate everywhere world. That said, it is a Microsoft product. Does weird things occasionally. So, continuity of service to our members. This is why. Continuity of service to our members. This is why we do this. Everything else takes a backseat to this. There's a lot of everything else. Make no mistake about it. There is a lot of everything else behind this. But if you do that continuity of service to our members, you'll be headed in the right direction. What are those other things behind it? Regulatory compliance, of course. We have to do this. We have to do vendor management. We want to connect it to the business continuity plan, and the reason we want to connect it is to reduce that duplication of effort. It's critical member services. Third-party vendors are providing our critical member services nowadays. Reputation risk. Reputation risk is huge. It's the largest risk we all face in the financial industry, that if we do something wrong, we affect member service for an unacceptable period of time, we're going to start losing members. That's reputation risk. Regulatory compliance. Back there where I said, you think you've wrapped your arms around it and understand it completely? Just go to the DRJ website, the resources. They've got a list of all the rules and regulations facing disaster recovery and business continuity. Last count, there was over 130 of them. Do all of them apply to the financial industry? No. However, there's three key ones that do. The first one is HIPAA, and that doesn't say a word about the financial industry. But HIPAA is what started getting used a number of years ago. It's been 8-9 years ago. Started being used to describe the requirements for security of member data. It started in the health insurance industry and privacy, and it crossed over to the financial industry, gosh, about 8 years ago. FFIEC, NCUA regulators started using the standards set in HIPAA for patient privacy for our member information. FFIEC, of course, provides tremendous guidelines, and then the NCUA interprets and applies those guidelines. But again, if you think you've got your arms wrapped around all the rules and regulations that apply, you've got this down, just go to this website and take a look at that list. That'll really depress you. Member data. When does it become critical? That seems to be the deciding factor, in my opinion. If that vendor is doing member data, then it rises from being a vendor or an important vendor to becoming a critical vendor immediately. There might be other conditions, but that's the number one. That's the driving one. We're outsourcing more and more. This is good and this is bad. It's why we're doing vendor management, is because we are outsourcing more and more. It's good because you're eliminating those internal points of failure. So method of dealing with risk is to do that. And outsourcing, is making those vendor partnerships. These people, those vendors, do this for a living, and they're usually better at it than we can, for most of us, can be internally. There's so many dependencies, interdependencies between departments, IT, the department that's using the vendor connection or the vendor product, the member, the tools they use. There's just so many interdependencies we need to look at. But don't forget the foundation, the basics. Your network provider, the MPLS, the point-to-point, whatever it is, the Metro Ethernet, whatever it is you're using to connect your branches, that's one of your vendors. Your internet is one of your vendors. ATMs, you may have a vendor there, you may control your own. You have a vendor relationship for the security controller if you control your own, or shared branch. Online banking, mobile. There's an interesting one. That one concerns, as professionals, as planners, and worried about mitigation and prevention. The whole mobile banking thing concerns me, because you've got people that are putting applications on their phones. Their phones are Bluetooth enabled. They leave that Bluetooth on. And what's the potential for security compromise there? Does your mobile vendor, if I were developing a mobile application right now, I think I would develop it so it forced Bluetooth to shut off before the mobile would connect and send any member data. And I don't know that that's really happening right now. Your mortgage department, there's different mortgage vendors out there that we work with. More and more of us are working with indirect lending. Not only you might be using someone to manage the data, but your member data is going out there to the dealerships. Now, the member is authorizing that, but at the same time, there's some culpability there. There's some liability, so you want to know they're doing the right thing. Cards and plastic, those relationships. Just so many different vendor relationships. It's the background, it's the supporting areas, it's the direct things you think of. Everybody thinks of immediately as the vendors we work with, but it's also the physical. Contractors come in, our cleaning crew, building maintenance, and then support, temp hires, consultants, like ongoing operations. All needs to. They're all vendor relationships. We need to manage them appropriately. Executive recognition on reputation risk is the key. Reputation risk, again, it's the biggest threat we face when we're doing the vendor evaluations. We're looking at vendors. What's the potential? And some of the mitigation steps we want to take, they're going to cost money. Having a duplicate vendor connection or redundancy to the branches or to the internet, they're not free. So we need that executive support. It's the most significant risk we face, and I'm going to show that to you. Your members only see you. What do you mean? If you have a vendor issue, it's your issue. Response time, method, the message are critical, and keep it simple. To everybody listening, this is a gold nugget from this. You have online banking, and if it goes offline for any reason, you should be posting that message immediately. Instead of click service is not available, that sign-on should be immediately replaced with "we apologize for the inconvenience." ATMs, branches, all the other sources for doing member transactions are working, or just tell them what is working. And this tool will start working again shortly, and we apologize for the inconvenience. You notice how I worded that? It's kind of like a thank you note. Thank you. This is what it means to me. Thank you again. We apologize. This is what we're doing for you. We apologize for the inconvenience. Keep it short and sweet. I can share an example. Won't say who, but I had a credit union that online banking was offline for close to 48 hours. Immediately got with them, said, hey, I want that service not available replaced with a message from the president. And the first draft was pages, multiple pages. I'm like, whoa, hold it. Miscommunication, short and sweet. Thank you. Here's what we're doing for you. Thank you. We apologize. Here's what's working. We apologize for the inconvenience. So that credit union immediately posted on the website that short message, and click here for more information for a technical brief. 100,000 members, 48-hour outage. I believe the final count was 3 members clicked on the I want more information. The rest were okay with the simple message. But that simple message is much friendlier than sorry, service is not available at this time, try later. And so you should post that even if you're doing maintenance in addition to unplanned, planned and unplanned. Now I don't see this much anymore, but we used to. You got a maintenance window scheduled for this Saturday, please do not post on your website. The online banking is going to be offline from 8 to midnight this Saturday night because we're doing some core maintenance. You might as well post a message, hey, free money at the ATMs this Saturday night from 8 p.m. to midnight if you've got stand-in limits. So don't post the times, post the simple message, and response time is critical. Executive recognition of the reputation risk is critical. So how do you do that? We have a tool. Many of you have used this. If you haven't, I want you to use it. However, not all at once. Last time I did a demo, I understand we had several hundred people try and log on that afternoon and use this tool. So if you try, it doesn't work because of overload, try again later. It's free. It's on our website. What we have is we have a financial impact analysis tool that takes your 5300 report. So you can run this tool for your credit union. Takes your 5300 report and plugs in the NCUA statistics. They maintain statistics on what has happened during disasters. There's percentages of impacts over a period of time. The full report goes all the way out to 30 days. And so this is a snapshot, and the full report covers exactly how the calculations are made, what the percent of impacts and all that are. Again, it's free. It's on our website. If 100 people try and run it at once, it's not going to work. So if you find a slow response, just come back later and try it the next few days. But here's an example of a $350 million credit union, what kind of risk they face. And I'm using it to show you the reputation risk because the NCUA does score that. What's that mean? It means loss of memberships, loss of money or members because of an outage. And the NCUA data assumes the worst case. A worst case, well actually it combines all of them, but the worst case, this is where you're going to see these kind of numbers, is when the credit union stops servicing its members, but the community's okay. You see what I'm saying? Hurricane, tornado, community-wide event, your members are more understanding. But if you stop servicing, it's your problem, the community's okay, they're less understanding. So what I want you to make note of here quickly now for the point of this presentation is that reputation risk, how it starts significant and then grows exponentially. Nothing here grows that exponentially. It's just huge. This is a live example from a $350 million credit union. And here's a live example for a large credit union, a very large credit union, in this case $8 billion. It's a huge financial risk, and the reputation risk is just absolutely incredible. Either one, it grows exponentially. I laugh. When we're showing this to the executive team for the first time, I will say, you're all probably familiar with the tool MAO, Maximum Allowable Outage. It's an IT term for our systems, our connectivity, our vendor connections, all that. What's the maximum allowable outage for that particular service or connection or system? This is the MAO worksheet for the executives. It's not measured in system and time, it's dollars and time. And I like to point out to them, because we always have, when we do the executive presentation, right, we always have somebody from the accounting department wants to go over those fine details on how the percentages are calculated. And I repeat, this is your 5300 report if you go out and run this tool. So you can run it on your neighbor too. And it's your 5300 and NCUA statistics. But let's look at these numbers. If it was off by 10%, no, let's say it's off by 20%. And I know it's not. It's very, very close. It's very accurate. But if it was off by 20%, would it, from the executive perspective, would it change the point beyond which they're not willing to go? And the answer is always no, it doesn't. They don't like that day one. They're definitely not going to day three. What do we have to do to support a better business continuity program? And that's the outcome from this FIA tool, is you get the executives going. They look at it, they say, darn, it's right. Where do I sign up? I want a better business continuity program. So we're going to focus on vendor management and your business continuity program and share some ideas. Here's how we do it. And again, the samples I'm going to show you are somewhat specific to SharePoint, but you might be able to cross them over to what you use, get some good ideas. And we're always, all my team is open to discussing best practices. Look for tools that eliminate the duplication of effort. I'm going to cover that more again. But again, I often see that you go into a department, every employee in that department works with the vendors is maintaining their own list. Then once a year they get the request to update the business continuity plan. Or twice a year, and once or twice a year the accounting department says, where's the latest information on this particular vendor we work with. We can merge all that together. Those contact lists, the vendor management, the disaster recovery, the business continuity plan, that's another place that happens, the BIA. We can merge them all together so eliminates that duplication of effort. It has to be easy to use. It needs to be custom because every credit union is not the same. Training, development, support, all those tools have to be in place. So how do we do it? We start at the department level. We drive it from the line staff up, the people actually managing not managing, but using that vendor relationship, working with the vendor. This is one of the reasons we use SharePoint. However, like I mentioned before, SharePoint, Microsoft product does weird things. We actually have some clients that SharePoint Connect Outlook is a challenging feature to get working because of different operating systems and stuff. If you can do it, it's the best we found anywhere. You can create a vendor contact list in your business continuity plan. You can connect it to Outlook. You can do that for everybody in the department. So now your whole team is connected to Outlook. It's a very simple process. Click, connect to Outlook, allow, and yes. And so everybody in the department is now using one list, but instead of doing the public or the share on the Exchange server in your email server or your Lotus Notes, you did it on SharePoint. Very similar, however, the difference is you make a change in Outlook, the business continuity plan's instantly updated, and vice versa. It creates a two-way connection, so now you've eliminated created two opportunities, eliminate two duplications of effort. The first thing you did was you connected your Outlook, the department manager's Outlook, to SharePoint, instant backup. You don't have to do the business continuity updates separately. But you also had everybody in your department do it, so now everybody in the department is sharing one vendor contact list. You never have to call somebody in the department at home and say, hey, I'm doing your job, you got the flu, who have you been talking to at such and such. It's one click, there it is in Outlook, or on the business continuity plan, either or. Your line staff is empowered to keep it current, so they can add new vendors, new contacts, or in the notes field, it could be just the vendor, and in the notes field, they can say, talk to so-and-so for this, talk to so-and-so for that. However you want to organize it, it's Outlook, it's simple, it's a tool we're all familiar with. But this is where it starts to get interesting. If you have all that information collect in all the departments, you can collate it. You can have the department update another list and share it forward into a vendor management database. And here's how we are connecting. This is what we're actually doing for our clients. Anyone that uses the vendor contact list at the department level is maintained. They've got a good vendor contact list. We will install for them a vendor management database. It's a great start. It's a wonderful tool. It's simple. We start simple and grow from there. And the price is right. It's free. If you get See Recover, if you're using our product, it's free. If you're not using something else, you want to share ideas, we are open to sharing ideas with you. I've shown you what we do because it's so simple. The department information, all the information being maintained in the department, posts forward to whoever. In this case, in this example, the accounting department's responsible for the vendor management. It's not compliance in this example. And so it gets posted forward. What do they do with vendor management? With their list, which is pre-filled from the departments with the vendor's name, the contact information, address, notes, and all that stuff, they get the additional fields, the fields that have to do with vendor management. And again, I want to emphasize, start simple. If you get it too complicated right off the bat, you can get carried away. And we'll go into more a little bit, but there's some guidelines on what the minimum is. It's less than you think, though it does keep changing. Your NCUA examiner asks for something, we add it. And again, that's one of the reasons we use an open source tool like SharePoint, is because we get those feedback from the examiners and they say, we want this added, we add it, because it's very easy. And of course, you have to be able to embrace that. You want to align your vendor management requirements with the FFIEC handbook and what the NCU examiners say. And that's one of the fun things about our jobs. What we do is we hear from those 100 credit unions that we work with every year. We're getting that feedback. Don, the examiner wants this. How can I do that? We embrace, yeah, here's how we do it. Let's add that tool to your website, to your business continuity plan. And then we turn around and roll it out to everybody else when they're good ideas and valuable. That's really fun. To me, it's exciting when and we're spoiling the examiners a little bit, because they know if they hit one or two ongoing operations, BCP websites, and say something needs to be done, by the time they hit 3 or 4 more, it's being done to everybody. It's pretty interesting. Use the same database for accounts payable. So now accounts payable can go click, and there's all the latest information and stuff. Perhaps even make connections, live connections, so they don't have to go somewhere else. Align those tools with risk management. You notice the starter, the simple risk management, low, medium, high risk associated with that vendor. Again, today we do the business impact analysis separately from the risk management analysis, separately from the vendor management threat assessment, separately from the system-specific, IT-specific risk or single point of failure analysis. We need to line all these together, vendor management, BCP, and all of those things. And it can be done. The challenge is, if you try and wrap your arms around it and get it too complicated, by the time you've figured out your project plan, it's probably shifted and it's not accurate anymore. So you want a project plan, but you want to keep it fairly simple to start with and allow it to grow. Simple, effective, and then grow. So you want those crosswalks in place. You want to provide IT with the outcomes. Never, ever forget that there's outcomes from all this work we do. Again, we work with so many credit unions. They do great business impact analysis, risk assessments, and they do all these things. And we say, okay, so what have you done with the outcomes? And it's like, what? So we have tools that and we've actually sat down with an NCU examiner and said, what would you like to see? And so we have tools based on their feedback, what they'd like to. And of course, compliance, the vendor management, the person responsible for vendor management, I assume everybody on this call has some vested interest there. They need to make sure that the outcomes are being dealt with. That we need to monitor the IT disaster recovery program, make sure stuff is happening. So, think opportunity. Some of you might be feeling that you pulled the short straw or have a target painted on your back. I challenge you here. Change your thinking. It's an opportunity. Business continuity planning, merging ideas is just a tremendous opportunity. It's a win-win. Create win-wins like a vendor system goes all the way from the line staff talking to that vendor on the phone all the way up through the vendor management system and eliminates duplication of effort. That's a huge opportunity. Yes, it's soft money time, but it really does add up. It eliminates the well, we've all heard this, going over the top of the cubes. Where's the latest copy of? Where did you put this information? It's all tied together. We want to start to embrace those opportunities to create win-wins and eliminate duplication of effort. These are all gold nuggets here, except continuous improvement. That's really challenging for some of us, myself included. We might be a little detail-oriented. That you have to accept that this is good enough, and I'm going to open it up again in a month or 6 months, because by that point I'll have new ideas and we'll have things. You do want to have your checklist. What's that minimum? The guiding lines, HIPAA and FFIEC handbook, NCAUA uses those and best practices to do that. Disaster recovery exercises are just that. They're the exercises, the opportunities to validate the controls that have been put in and gaps that have been closed. So, but I challenge you, think about this as an opportunity rather than pulling the short straw. FFIEC, that basic list. NCU examiners interpret it. They add this is how I want you to do that. We work closely with them, and I assure you it's constantly changing. The good thing is that the clients we work most closely with them are getting scrutinized, so the standards we roll out from them makes the rest of you look proactive, so that's cool. Those best practices, never forget to apply common sense. If it looks and feels like you should do it, you probably should. And accept that constant change. We want to protect ourselves from damage to the reputation risk in connecting the vendors and the business continuity plan. And yeah, Royce, just to verify again, Royce is going to be sending a follow-up email. Any questions, you go ahead and use the chat tool to ask them, and Royce will decide when to interrupt me here. That's okay. So I suspect many of you signed on to see how we're going to connect vendor management and BCP to the specific the DR exercise. So again, disaster recovery, business continuity, not the same. Disaster recovery is what IT and facilities does, and there's vendor relationships in both of those. Business continuity is continuity service to the members. It's also the umbrella term. It encompasses the, Royce, you got a question? I heard you come on. It encompasses the disaster recovery plans and the continuity service to the members.
Don?
Manual. Yes, go ahead.
Just wondering, when is ongoing operations going to SharePoint 2010?
Thank you for that troublemaker there. The website, the tools we're using right now in SharePoint 2007 had a lot of customization done to the SharePoint server environment. And so what we found is the migration to 2010 is a little more challenging than we thought. We do have a team working on it. We have been working on it for many months. I cannot set a date, but it is in process. It is now considered a high priority at ongoing operations to get to the 2010, possibly even the 2013 environment. And that's all I can say right now is that some of you have been here. Custom development, and then you get a version change or an operating system change, you kind of shot yourself in the foot. I don't mind admitting it, so we're going to learn from our lesson and move on. We are going to migrate. Just can't say when.
Now, Don, if I may, we have SharePoint 2013, but we don't have our BCP site up on it because of those customizations you mentioned.
Exactly. When we brought over a client website and said, okay, let's just wick up 2010, some stuff that we consider critical stop functioning.
Right.
So we're trying to correct it.
Because I know we provide SharePoint 2013 on a vanilla basis to a couple clients, but that's not where we host their BCP websites.
Not at this time, no. So I used the wrong word. I said we're trying. No, we are going to do it. There's absolutely no question about the move forward. What I can't answer is the exact time.
Remotely, like you could just go to the website and log in, do home. I like it.
No, the BIA. The BIA identified, when you did your business impact analysis, you identified the vendor criticality and the recovery point objective. I'm sorry, that should have been recovery time objective as well as recovery point objective. So that's one of the outcomes from the business impact analysis is we've got that criticality. I hear the audio, Royce. Is there another question? No? Okay. So IT said once they're going to get stuff for the BIA, we use 4 stages as the outcomes from the business impact analysis. The first one we call critical. It's the stuff we'd like zero down. It could stop working for a short time, but when we come back in tomorrow, it better be working. It's the immediate stuff. Then we do vital. That's the stuff that we could be recovered tomorrow or maybe even the next day. Then we do the stuff that's important, can be recovered in the 3 to 7 day windows, and so on and so forth. We have different categories. Within those categories, once the BIA says, here's the 2 or 3 vendors that we can deem critical, we'd like zero down, definitely can't be very long, more than a couple hours. IT has to establish the priorities and dependencies because there are dependencies. Before that vendor work, we have to have this, this, and this. So that's up to them. Outcomes. Those outcomes from there and IT establishing those priorities, the outcomes are that we need to protect or assign the risk. So those of you with experience in risk management are going to recognize those two terms. There are 5 ways of dealing with risk. We can eliminate it. In other words, just stop doing that because it's too risky. We can protect it. That's mitigation, eliminating single points of failure, things like that. We can assign it. That's doing a partnership. A vendor, doing a vendor relationship is assigning the risk out of managing that software, that application, that vendor, whatever it is the vendor does. Of course, it creates other risks too. The 4th way is to accept the risk. We can accept that it's not at the top of the list, it's not the most critical, it's not the most likely thing to have happen, so we're going to put it on we're accepting it for now, and we'll bring it up again in 6 months or a year. That's the acceptance list. And again, those of you familiar with risk management know that there is a 5th way. It's not allowed. It's called ignore. So vendors should be included in your disaster recovery exercises, and I strongly encourage the plural there. And you might want to consider participating in theirs. In an advanced exercise, it's great if you can actually participate in the vendor exercise. It's a win-win. A lot of vendors are resistant to that. However, it raises the validation of their own. Okay, we've recovered these key client services, and to have an act instead of just their IT doing it, to actually have a client connect and say, yeah, that works just like normal, thank you. That's pretty cool. It's an improved validation for themselves and you to participate in their disaster recovery exercise. What are some of the lessons we've learned? Well, we've learned that you have to exercise a lot, and so it's plural. You want to put at least a couple vendors, a key vendor or 2 in each exercise. It can be too expensive to do all the vendors at once. We have too many vendor relationships nowadays, and so we want to divide that. Vendor connectivity can be a separate exercise. Let's say you've got a redundant circuit for internet. There's your basic one. You can connect. You can make sure that the failover is working at 1 a.m. one morning. Make sure the failover works. It can be a separate exercise, the vendor connectivity. Ping is adequate for a basic test. It's absolutely fine. I know some of our vendors out there charge for disaster recovery exercises, the connectivity installed, some don't. Some of them offer multiple levels of connectivity, anywhere from a connect and ping to something they plugged in on the other end of there, to connecting to a disaster recovery system on their side of things, to switching of live. Be very careful before you do that last one, switching of live. However, that is our goal. The goal is to be able to, if something goes wrong with the primary vendor tool or connection, we can fail over. We can do that alternate. That should be the goal for at least those critical ones. What else? Alternate connectivity, I already mentioned that. We've got to eliminate those single points of failure for our most critical vendors. What are those? The branch connectivity is one of our critical ones. However, I'll balance that a little bit. Those of you who've been involved in the credit union industry for a long time know that our branch staff is really good at doing offline member service for a little while. They're irritated with it, but they're okay with it. So we'd like the branches to stay up continuously. However, having those manual procedures today, they've been around forever, and they work. It happens all the time. We had a credit union in the Bay Area had a fiber trunk cut just last week. All the branches went offline, and they were very successful. They just did an outstanding job of communicating and continuing to service their members. In fact, kudos, because of how well they handled it. And that was BayFed. They just started the business continuity planning process with us, and we were just impressed with their maturity and their ability to handle a major outage like that. But a major fiber trunk line gets cut, it can be anywhere from 10 to 20-something hours to get repaired. It's not just instant. We saw the one in the Bay Area, Honolulu earlier this year in January. Major trunk that affected not just Oahu but a couple other islands was burned once and cut 2 weeks later. It happened twice in 1 month. So it does happen. Failure tests. You want to do those failure tests on those alternate connections. This is a big one. The failure test, I don't know how many IT folks I got here. Hopefully I've got a bunch of business continuity professionals. If I have a networks guy, I'm sorry for giving away your secret, but the networks guy during a test will usually go into that router and do a shutdown on the primary port, so after he's configured and he's sure that the secondary port's connected. Okay? That's not a test. That's not a failure test. When he says it will fail over, you want to schedule something at the lowest possible member impact point in time, and you want to unplug the primary circuit or unplug the power on that primary router. Your network person doesn't want to do that, but they have to, because going into the router config and doing a shutdown is not going to get the same reaction as doing unplugging the circuit and you can do 2 separate tests, unplugging the power. So you want to make sure that those really get done properly. And we can get into it. I don't want to get sidetracked on this discussion. This is business continuity planning, the vendor relationship. And right now we're on the VR test. And if you want to contact us and say, what do we see happen, I'll talk about that. One of the most interesting ones, this is repeat the test with change and updates. One of the most interesting examples of these two is I was involved in a credit union that had a call center outage, their phone system outage. Call center went offline, and the executive team was quite upset because 2 years prior they had funded a fully redundant contact center. It was only a half-mile away. Everybody would go over there, the phones would be working. And they arrived one morning, no phones. Go to the contact center, no phones. And they were quite upset because they funded this. It was very expensive. Why didn't it fail over? Well, a vendor in charge of the network configuration did a minor router update the night before, during the night. And after that change and update, they didn't test it. I mean, literally, as in didn't pick up the phone and see if the phones were working. And the update killed the primary phone system. And the failover, well, they thought they configured it, or were pretty close to getting done with configuring it, but they never tested it. So it really wasn't completed. So this is, you want to do this, because if you're the primary responsible, it could be a Job Security Act. So record those issues, record those opportunities. They're all opportunities. You cannot fail a disaster recovery exercise. You notice I'm not calling this a test. That's very important, very, very important. We need to get away from the term test when we're doing our disaster recovery stuff. There are things we test, but an exercise implies that it's more than just a yes, no, or pass, fail. The days when we might show up at our hot site with electronic backup or tape backup, restore the core system, the minimum stuff we need to sign on to the core, those are gone. That is no longer an exercise or even an acceptable test. All you've done right there, in fact, in that scenario I just described, all you've done is validated that your backup was good. That's it. It's not a test. So that has changed a lot. And when we record those issues, opportunities, gaps, and action plans, those are what our examiners call sufficiency of controls. What's our mitigation plan? What's the residual threat that we recognize when we looked at what we have in place and we exercise? And what's our action plan to close those? That's what the examiners are looking for right there. That's their terminology. What do you have for sufficiency and controls? And there's 3 bullet items. These are important: mitigation plan, residual threat, and action plan. So to do that, you have to have a project management plan. But you don't have to get carried away with that project management plan. Again, start simple and then grow from there. You've got to start simple, or you're going to run into the, wow, I can't wrap my hands around it, or you spent so long creating your project plan that when you get ready to start, you realized it shifted. Scope creep and things have taken. So what's the opportunity? Seize the opportunity. I want to challenge you to do that. Vendor issues and outages are common. Very close, but not quite the most common disaster we have. What's the most common disaster? Well, it's human error. It always has been, but that also applies to vendors. So the human error can be a vendor. That phone system, that was a human error. Router update, didn't check to see that the router update was successful. It was a vendor issue. Could have been an internal IT staff, could have been anybody. So human error always remains the most common disaster. I can't tell you in the 8 years I ran one of the Fiserv DR hot sites, I cannot tell you how many times that I had a client call and say, Don, I think I just deleted the members database. And we looked at their system, and sure enough, they had deleted the members database. Right offhand, I can think of at least 4 times it happened. It's just absolutely amazing. You want to tie all these together, seize those opportunities, tie the BIA, the regulatory compliance, the vendor management. You want to tie all these basics together. It is, but you got to start simple. You have to go from there. And it's an old term, but the old term is still applicable. It's synergy. If you do it right, you start simple so you can understand what you're working with and grow. And every time you grow, you say, why am I growing? Why am I adding this? Don't add complexity if you don't have to, if it doesn't produce an outcome or it's not a regulatory compliance. The goal is synergy. It's an old term. It still applies. We want to get to the enterprise level where everything works together. It saves time and opportunity. And with that, I've left some time for discussions. Make note of my email, phone number. We are always open to sharing ideas. And Royce, you must have some more questions.
I do, Don. I have a question for you about the excuse me, the financial impact analysis tool.
Yes.
It seems to be based on the assumption that the credit union is the one affected, but the surrounding area is not.
No, that's the worst case scenario. It's based on the credit union's 5300. So whoever runs a report, it's your 5300. By the way, it's always 3 or 6 months behind because of the NCUA database, but that's okay. Your 5300 and NCUA statistics on impacts of real disaster events. However, when we look at that and say that the worst case is if the credit union is stop servicing the members, the communities, okay. That's the worst case. Your members are more understanding. As long as they can get some money, they're more understanding if it's a wide area event.
So the financial impact analysis tool does account for damage outside of the credit union, such as in a hurricane.
Yeah, it's actually an average because it's the NCUA statistics on all disaster events. They say, I'll pick one for example. NCUA statistics says that when the credit union is out for X number of time, they waive an average, and on fees waived, it's 80%. That's what they say is the average. My personal experience is most credit unions, after a day or two, realize they're not going to be able to figure out which fees to apply and not, and they just waive them all, 100%. But the NCUA says 80%. So there's an example. When you run the report, it'll be more clear because you see all of the assumptions and calculations as part of the report, not just the first page like I was showing. More?
Yes.
Bryce? Oh.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get them organized. So, Don, when you talk about managing vendors, is SharePoint the best way to do that, or there's a lot of vendor management software out there? How would you address that?
There's a lot. The mature vendor management tools are the best way to do that, with the understanding, first off, they can be really complicated. They don't have, like we do with SharePoint, the ability to start simple and grow. Most of those vendor management tools can be very complicated, and you run into that, how do I wrap my arms around it, where do I start? And they can be expensive. So those are the 2 caveats. We are really pleased that we chose, years ago, we chose to go SharePoint. Some of you, there's probably a few people there that might remember I did a Fiserv conference in, gosh, I think it was 2005, where I said, where do we record this stuff? How do we do this? Where do we create an once populate every world? And back then I said, we need to start watching this SharePoint, Microsoft SharePoint. I think it's going to be the best tool there is. And that was years ago, and it's just gotten better. So the purpose of this presentation isn't to sell SharePoint. It's just to cover, that's what we use. It's the best thing I've found so far. And the price is right.
Okay. So you use the example of a vendor who was supposed to set up a separate warm site with phones for one of our credit unions, and a vendor had made a mistake, and the credit union was unable to bring up their vendor site. What kind of protections should a credit union look for when contracting with a vendor in situations like that to protect against losses in situations like that?
Okay. You can put it in writing. You should. The RFP should, the service level agreement should all be in there, what the expectations are and stuff. It comes down to testing. Until you've done your exercise and your tests, you can't be sure. And even when you've done it, it's only as good as the next router configuration change or update. So it all comes down to doing your disaster recovery exercises to verify that what they said is in place. I'm going to sidetrack just a little bit. I hate to keep going, but this is important. IT folks, and that'll be the people supporting your vendor and your connection. What do we do when things break? We fix it. We get centered on I've got to fix it. And we all have disaster recovery plans, and it's always a challenge when we're working with IT and creating those plans is to get IT folks to stop. When they do their first assessment, stop and take a breath. This is a gold nugget, you guys, from disaster recovery planning. Stop at the first assessment if you're in IT and say, do I see what the problem is? Is it known? If it's known, you say how management, you tell them how long it's going to take, and you fix it because you got the stuff to fix it. If it's unknown, consider activating your plan. You tested, you did an exercise, you know you can fail over in X number of minutes or a couple hours. That's a known. Go with the known, not the unknown.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Unless you have something else to add or unless anyone else has any more questions, it's 3 o'clock and I'm inclined to stay within our hour that we scheduled.
That's wonderful because we're always open to questions. We're always open to sharing best ideas. We are CUSO. We have a vested interest in the credit union industry, and we love doing this stuff. So thank you all for attending. It's an honor to be here. And thank you, Royce.
Thanks, Don. And everybody, I'm going to be sending out a follow-up email that includes a recording, a link to the recording of the presentation, and Don's slideshow. Thank you all for attending, and have a good day.